You hear Vikings, and the image arrives instantly. Dragon-proud ships cutting through cold gray seas. Warriors with braided hair and ringed arms. Axes flashing. Shields locked. Gold spilling from monasteries. But history is rarely what it advertises. The sagas celebrate the raid. They praise courage, strength, and victory. They describe treasure, land, and glory. Then, at a certain point, they grow quiet. After the shields stopped clashing. After the longships pulled away from burning shores. After the victory feasts ended, what happened to the women taken in those raids? That story survives, not in heroic poetry, but in law codes, burial pits, slave market records, and scattered lines in chronicles from Ireland to Byzantium. And when those fragments are placed together, they reveal something systematic. Not chaos, not random cruelty, a structure. Across the 8th to 11th centuries, Norse raiding expanded from coastal hit-and-run attacks to organized campaigns. Monasteries in Ireland, settlements in Northumbria, towns along the Frankish coast, river routes deep into Eastern Europe. Loot mattered. Silver funded expansion. Weapons secured territory. But captives were often more valuable than treasure. Irish annals, Anglo-Saxon chronicles, and Arabic travel accounts all mention the same pattern. After a settlement was overrun, survivors were sorted. Men of fighting age were often killed or ransomed. Children and adolescents could be sold. Women of certain ages were classified separately, not as wives, not as brides in the romantic sense later myths would suggest, but as property. The documentation is clinical. The Annals of Ulster list captives taken after specific raids, recording numbers without commentary. Archaeological excavations in Dublin, Hedeby, and York reveal slave quarters attached to major settlements. Small, narrow rooms with limited light, sometimes with iron rings fixed into walls or floors. The law codes of medieval Scandinavia reinforce the picture. In Iceland's Grágis Code and Norwegian provincial laws, enslaved people are described as property with assigned monetary value. Compensation is required if someone else damages or kills another man's slave, not because of moral outrage, because of economic loss. Children born to enslaved women occupied a separate legal category, not fully enslaved, not fully free. Their status followed the mother, and inheritance rights were sharply restricted. This was not improvisation. It was policy. Transport logistics show planning. Viking ships were not originally designed for human cargo. Yet excavations such as those at Gokstad and Coppergate reveal evidence of iron restraints and mass-produced shackles. Forging centers in Scandinavia produced restraints in significant quantities, suggesting that captivity was not incidental to raiding, it was anticipated. Trade networks stretched astonishing distances. A woman captured in Ireland might be transported to a Norse settlement in Iceland. She might be sold in Dublin. She might travel east along the Volga trade route toward markets influenced by the Byzantine world. Arab chronicler Ibn Fadlan, writing in the 10th century about Norse traders on the Volga, describes captives present in trading camps, treated as commodities within broader commercial systems. The distances involved made escape nearly impossible. Geography became part of the prison. The economic logic was blunt. A successful raid might yield silver and portable goods, but captives could be sold repeatedly, traded, or put to labor in agricultural settlements. Dublin became one of the largest slave markets in Western Europe during the Viking Age. Contemporary monastic sources reference seasonal peaks in slave trading corresponding with raiding campaigns. Human trafficking was not a side effect of expansion. It was revenue. In some cases, the estimated market value of captives rivaled or exceeded the value of metal loot. From the perspective of raiding leaders, targeting civilian populations made economic sense. History does not soften that reality. Archaeology fills in what chronicles avoid. In 1987, construction in York uncovered a stone-lined pit containing multiple female skeletons dated to the mid-10th century. During the period of Norse control in the region, several showed signs of malnutrition, trauma, and ankle wear consistent with restraints. In Iceland and Norway, slave quarters have been identified beside main halls. Differences in diet are visible in bone isotope analysis. Enslaved individuals consumed poorer cuts of meat and less varied nutrition compared to free households. Mass graves from trading centers such as Ribe in Denmark suggest episodes of concentrated death among young female populations in the 9th and 10th centuries. These remains do not speak in poetry. They speak in bone density, trauma marks, and carbon dates. The psychological dimension rarely appears in sagas, but law codes hint at its shadow. Free women in Norse communities were aware of what defeat meant. Captivity was a visible reality in their own settlements. Enslaved women worked in kitchens, fields, weaving rooms. They raised children who would never fully inherit the rights of their fathers. The threat was implicit. Lose the battle, lose everything. Marriage negotiations, alliances, and political calculations existed within that awareness. Occasionally, resistance appears in fragments of record. Saga literature mentions enslaved women who attacked captors. Legal texts note executions following slave uprisings. These are brief references, often reduced to a sentence, but they confirm that captivity was never fully passive. Resistance, however, rarely altered outcomes. The system was larger than individual acts of defiance. As Norse societies converted to Christianity in the 10th and 11th centuries, slavery did not immediately disappear. Canon law complicated matters, particularly concerning Christian ownership of other Christians. Yet secular law adapted. Categories were refined. Definitions shifted. Captives taken in war could be treated differently depending on origin and faith. Gradually, over centuries, chattel slavery in Scandinavia declined. But during its height, it was embedded in economic and legal structures. One of the most unsettling archaeological discoveries in recent years came from ground-penetrating radar surveys in Denmark. A mass grave dating to the mid-9th century revealed dozens of young female skeletons showing consistent signs of restraint wear. Among them were individuals wearing Scandinavian-style amber beads. Not foreign captives, Norse women, evidence suggesting that, at times, raiding and enslavement turned inward when external supply diminished. The system had become self-consuming. When profit becomes normalized, boundaries dissolve. Modern popular culture often romanticizes Viking society. Fierce independence, exploration, honor. Those elements existed. So did something else. A structured system in which captured women were categorized, transported, sold, and legally defined as property across an interconnected trade world stretching from the North Atlantic to the Caspian Sea. The chronicles are sparse. The sagas are selective. But archaeology is indifferent. Iron rings in walls, shackle marks on bone, legal codes assigning silver value to human lives. History rarely presents heroes without shadows. And if we choose to look beyond the dragon ships and battle axes, beyond the poetry and television dramatizations, we find a quieter truth, one buried in trade ledgers and settlement debris. The Viking Age was not only an era of exploration and conquest. It was also an era of organized human trafficking woven into the fabric of expansion. Understanding that does not erase the complexity of Norse civilization, but it restores the missing half of the story, the part the sagas preferred not to sing about.